Hello again, welcome back to the BAMREF Show with me, Darren Lewis, and the BAMREF CEO, Ajibola. Our special guest this week is Raj Randhawa, and he is special because he is the National Refereeing Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager, and we're delighted to have him here in the studio on the BAMREF Show this week. One of our own, Farai Alam, has been at the centre of one of the big refereeing controversies, the biggest in recent weeks, in his first ever game. We'll show you how support has come in for him after he was criticised by the Manchester City boss, Pep Guardiola. There will be refereeing changes at the next World Cup. We'll go through 5 of them here on the BAMREF Show. And handball at the Palace. Darren, England correctly waves away a penalty appeal, only to be overruled by his VAR. Who's right, who's wrong? We're going to talk about that here in the studio. But let's start with Raj. As I said before, he is the National Refereeing EDI Manager. Raj, how did you get started in that role?
Well, I started off my journey in EDI working at Lincoln City Football Club and the foundation. So, naturally, being of Indian heritage and a lover of football, I've always had intrigueness in terms of why was there not enough people in the industry like myself, and worked at Lincoln. And Lincoln, I helped them shape their EDI governances. We did a lot of work around some specific EDI projects, and essentially that's when Kick It Out came calling. There was an opportunity to work as a national grassroots manager, and essentially that's where refereeing actually started for me. When I got into that role at Kick It Out, I was only focused around the playing and the coaching aspect, trying to drive representation at grassroots level from them 2 roles, with also adding wider EDI governance at the grassroots level in terms of discriminatory protocols and providing victim-led support as well. And a lady who dropped me a phone call was Patsy Andrews, and quite rightly she challenged me in my position, saying, Raj, I've seen you doing all this excellent stuff in terms of the coaching side, playing side, in terms of grassroots leagues. You forgot one role. And I was like, well, what's that, Patsy? What about refereeing? And I was like, not many people talk about refereeing. And me and Patsy had a long conversation about the challenges, the historic challenges. She mentioned the long-standing historic underrepresentation of Black, Asian and mixed heritage populations. And she basically said, Raj, I've got a dream. I want to do something very specific. I want to do something specific for my community, and I want to basically pass a baton on to new referees from these communities that we mentioned. And I said to Patsy, take me on that journey. Let's work together. Let's do something. And it initially started there. We did the first ever Black, Asian and mixed heritage course. It was at Leicester, and it was in partnership with obviously BAMREF and Leicestershire FA. And I believe we had a region of 20 participants that did their referee course, and we provided subsidies in terms of ensuring that they got access to the referee course, provided obviously mentoring support, and a large majority of them are still refereeing today. But in a sense, I think that's the first time I met Aji at that Leicester event.
All right.
And
who approached who?
I think we were on a panel together. And
yeah, we were. Right? I think.
I feel like Cilla Black here.
Yeah.
Well, Raj speaks eloquently about Patsy Andrews, who was sworn into the BAMREF Hall of Fame in our last conference.
Just for our viewers who don't know who Patsy is.
Well, Patsy is the mother of Akil Housen, who is currently one of the only black assistant referee in the Premier League at this moment in time. And Patsy, obviously having had her own lived experiences, understanding the challenges that her son faced, we got aligned in our journeys together very, very many years ago when BAMREF came to light, and she was doing her own work within a region, hence the connection with Patsy to join forces and take the movement to a national level. So Patsy became very quickly one of BAMREF member and one of our ambassadors at the very early stages. but some of the good work she was doing in her region, in Midlands, was exactly what Raj alluded to. Not only did she work alongside ourselves to set up that course, but she also created a panel that creates an opportunity to educate the wider community about the challenges black and brown officials face. And Raj, with his Kick It Out, I think it was back then, came onto that panel to talk about the work he was doing to support refereeing, and hence our joining up of forces ever since, really, or challenge, should I say, however you want to look at it. Right?
Yeah, no, but it honestly was it opened my eyes, because I think a lot of people don't realise and maybe think about refereeing as you know, as one of the key roles within football, and I think the narrative is changing now, slowly. And I think more people obviously having, you know, the good and bad conversations about refereeing, but also I think there are a lot more individuals that want to kind of pick up the whistle as well. So, you know, got to give credit to Patsy for opening my eyes, I think, first and foremost. Obviously meeting Aji at that event in Leicester, then Aji then took me onto that to that next journey and talked about in terms of what that great work looks like, not just from a regional perspective, but actually how do we scale this up.
You are a level 7 referee yourself. What are the things that you became aware from a personal point of view that you needed to understand in relation to refereeing?
So essentially, moving on from Kick It Out, I went to the FA, into my current role as it is, and the big thing upon my role was to increase representation from these communities. And I had to ask myself, if I'm asking people to pick up the whistle, essentially I need to do the same. And I wasn't a qualified match official before I came into my role, but obviously now I am. But I thought that insight would give me, I guess, a lot more information on actually how can I shape this strategic, so we can have a big strategic impact nationally. I think initially, you know, I did the 2-day course amongst some wide, different individuals from different age groups, different backgrounds, but in a sense, it's one of our first Black Asian mixed heritage courses that we've done as part of under the FA umbrella. I think all I remember was finishing the course. The next part was doing them 5 games to qualify and get that certificate, and it was interesting. It was a bit of a science project, really. And I remember getting my first game. And it was appointed, and to be fair, it was a very sanitised environment. It was at Leicester City's academy. They were playing Accrington Stanley. It was a little round robin of the younger age groups, so it was under 7s to under 10s, I believe. And I was given 3 matches to referee. And I remember the morning getting up and putting my kit on. I thought, you know what? I forgot the laws of the game. Like I felt like I didn't like all my knowledge of watching football, understanding football. It just kind of wiped my brain. I'm thinking, actually, is this what people go through? Anyway, I put my kit on. I was like, no, I'll be fine. Got in the car, and as I was driving, and normally I listen to music. I'm a big Sam Fender fan, so I listen to Sam Fender. I couldn't listen to any music. I was like, I need to concentrate because I need to revise in my head. Like, what happens if this scenario happens? What happens if that scenario happens? And I was like, kind of like making these scenarios up in my head to ensure that I can plan and act in a certain way. But anyway, did that. I parked up at the academy training ground. Because I was super nervous, I left too early. So I was mega early. I think I was 2 hours early for an under 7s game.
Being early is good, by the way.
Yeah, it's good. But sometimes it can create more nerves.
Yeah, absolutely. You're sitting doing nothing, wondering what.
Well, I wasn't sitting doing nothing. So I sat in the car, and then I pulled up the laws of the game app, and I was revising. I thought, right, okay, yes, yeah, if that happens, yeah, okay. Anyway, then got out of my car, went to the changing room, and then there was another referee there. Made that referee aware, this is my first ever time refereeing, and I was all ready, all my kit, just need to put my boots on, and it must have been about like half an hour before kick-off, and the referee wasn't, like, he was just chilled, having a cup of tea, and I was like, should we go out? And he was like, oh, no, you're fine, the pitch is only just there. I was like, no, I'm going to go out. And then I went out there, the teams weren't even there, I was just standing there on the pitch. With my whistle, ready to go. Anyway, that half an hour seemed the longest ever. But as the teams came out, as soon as I blew the whistle, I kid you not, it was, I was struggling with myself. Why was I so worried? Because actually it was so easy.
Brilliant.
Like the details I learned from the course, I think I had a head start because obviously I'm an avid football fan, so I got the laws of the game, and there wasn't really many challenging issues in a sense, and it became a bit more fun. And as you blow your first whistle for a free kick, you think, well, wait a minute, like, I can easily do this. I can easily do this, and it became like, it just became second nature. And then I guess after that experience, after that game, the rest of the games were plain sailing. So essentially all that kind of science project that I did and kind of went through maybe the nervousness, the kind of process that people's minds go through, it actually then shaped obviously the strategy that was going to deploy nationally. So yeah.
Just sort of come
No.
in.
Before you do come in, I want you to hear your experience. Was yours similar to that? Your very first experience?
It was
just very quickly.
It was very similar actually. The nervousness, but I have to say, unlike Raj, obviously Raj demonstrates here his usual, should I say, archetypal way of working. Very much attention to detail. He's very detailed as a person, so he applied the same to his refereeing course.
What about you?
What of course he didn't know is that at that age group, and that is, you're probably the only one that knows the laws of the game anyway, so even if you got it wrong, no one will be able to challenge you, so to speak. But no, my first game was a very different experience because it wasn't academy football, it was actually men's football. So, and again, Raj is very, very fortunate that he had a much more sanitised environment because I was dropped in at a deep end.
Oh, wow.
South London football, I think it was probably about Division 4 or 5 game. Men's football, and also it was two teams that didn't like each other at all in any way whatsoever. So, paying attention to detail or being thorough around the appointment process of new referees is something that I've often discussed with you because of my own personal experience. And quite frankly, it was a World War III on my hands. So it was, and I could easily, after that first game, I could easily have packed it in.
Really?
Easily, because it did get out of control.
What's the worst thing that happened?
Well, I ran off the pitch. That's what happened. I didn't pick up the ball and walk off the pitch. I actually ran off the pitch because it was just one of those things.
So you could identify completely with a Senegal team.
Well, I'm not sure if I can in that regards. I think there's a whole more sort of manageable aspects of that game. You can look at the Senegal team, you can look at the management, you can look at all sorts of nuances that led to that scenario. But I can certainly relate to a referee who stood there thinking, I came here for enjoyment. Yeah. What I've got here is two teams who wanted to have a fight.
Can I just ask, I'm not a referee, lots of our viewers won't be referees, and you have two very different experiences here. One which ultimately ended up really fruitful, filled you with confidence, and one that was frankly a nightmare, it sounds like.
It is, yeah.
But you still stayed with it. Why did you stay with it?
I think two things there. One is, the journeys are probably about 20 years apart. Football and match officiating was at a different stage. I think Raj, now learning referee. And by the way, just as a sort of segue, Darren, Raj took on the challenge that I posed to him, saying, if you really want to understand what we're going through, go on a course. And he did. And I've been asking you that question for the last couple of years. And you keep saying, yes, I will. But again, it's an opportunity to reinforce my challenge to you.
That's all we've got time for.
But no, it's two different experiences, and I think referees now are being, due to the work that we're all doing collectively, they're being seen more as a human side, and they need to protect the breed of refereeing. So I pay more attention to appointment processes is things that Raj have picked up, and I'm sure even if he wasn't, he would have asked for Whereas referees in my days just do as they're told because that was the culture. So I went out knowingly, went to a game that I wasn't ready for.
You know what's interesting listening to the both of you talk? You're national manager at EDI. You are the CEO of BAMREF for the Black, Asian, mixed heritage referees, male and female. And both of you are perfectly placed to understand the anxieties of referees, given there are so many difficulties within the game, week to week, day to day, and it's unlikely that any given referee would come to either of you and say, I've got a situation that you possibly haven't gone through. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, well, the thing is, everyone's different in terms of their experiences and how they react. Some can have very positive experiences, some can have negative experience at the start. But I think one thing's different, and one thing that I hear a lot is the amount of support that's provided to match officials. Specifically, if you're not from county FA network, as a grassroots referee, that is your network to start tapping into, in a sense. And they've got obviously mentors, coaches, and one of the big things in terms of the strategy that I launched, which is called the Reflect and Representative campaign, was that obviously we had the recruitment pillar to deliver targeted courses up and down the country that was specific for Black, Asian and mixed heritage populations, and providing bursaries and kits, basically taking away all the barriers where people can actually give refereeing a go instead of paying out all that money and thinking actually it might not be for me. But the second part for that is essentially having a mentoring program, and obviously we're in collaboration with BAMREF, who deliver on behalf of that. And essentially, even if you have a positive or negative experience, as soon as you leave the course, we wanted nationally, we wanted them referees to feel supported from day dot, in a sense, and I think that's really, really crucial.
Yeah, you've caught Agiitis, because I asked him the question, he wants to give all the credit elsewhere, right? I want to hear about your experience, right? My point is that in the position that you're in, because you had those anxieties that you were discussing, and because you've been in that situation where you were a bag of nerves, but you were surrounded by people who were calm, who exuded calm, who were like, don't worry about it, we've still got a lot of time. That mentoring program you mentioned, you understand the need for it, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Because of your own personal experience.
Exactly, and to be fair, there was no direct signs in terms of what we created as part of that Reflective and Representative campaign, because like you mentioned, I'm the first person in my role. There's no playbook in terms of addressing underrepresentation in, you could say, a niche role in football, in a sense. So
what do you do in a situation like that when there's no one to? I know what it feels like in journalism. There'd been no one in my position before, so I literally just had to learn as I went along, make mistakes, which I did. What's it like for referees?
I think one big thing is that when coming into the space, obviously Aji and BAMREF were a great, created the foundation to have them obviously open and honest conversations. I think one big thing is if we want to strive and address underrepresentation, you've got to have them open and honest conversations. And we as a football association, we wanted to engage with BAMREF from day dot, and this is a campaign that's shaping every season. And that's really, really important to know. We are going to make mistakes. There have mistakes that have been made in season 1 to now, but actually the only way you can get better is if you make them necessary mistakes. And the mentoring program essentially came in season 2, in a sense, so we delivered the recruitment aspect.
Second season's always better than
yeah.
You know more.
But essentially season 1 was about recruitment, and then obviously being through my experience, learning about actually the anxieties, you think, well, actually, what can enhance that recruitment?
Yes.
And then we had that open conversation. Well, mentoring's the next evolution, isn't it?
You asked a great question. When you feel like you're a trailblazer, you say the question, what do you do? It's a very simple answer. You might be a trailblazer not specific, but if you look hard enough, you see people that have worked in similar shoes. You need to talk to people. Whatever industry you are in, whatever line of job you are, if you look hard enough, you will find people who's gone through similar experiences. And I think what referee really denotes it's a lonely place. You know, when you qualify, Raj mentioned his first game is on his own in his own car. That's refereeing up and down the country. Most people in refereeing start alone. It's not like a football team where you've got 11 other players in the changing room that you can bounce and you can help calm each other's anxiety because you're in it together. In refereeing, typically at grassroots, you're in it alone. So, you know, those feelings of anxiety and not knowing what you do next, if it's not explored and supported, you lose referees.
Can you just follow up on that for me? So, you've often told me, full disclosure, I've known Angie a long time, I know you both for a long time, but I remember you telling me many years ago that you're part of a refereeing team.
Yes.
So, as a newbie, if you like, you come in there and you're with 3 people, a referee, another assistant, 2 people, another assistant. They both know each other, they're both experienced. Can it be lonely in that situation?
Well, I think you're talking about the privileges of working in the semi-professional, professional game. You know, you only become a team when you start to move up the refereeing ladder, because typically, probably about 85% of games in this country are refereed by one official, grassroots football. And then you might get support from clubs who provide you assistant referees. You start to experience a team ethos when you get to step 4, step 3 football. And even in those nuances, you are alone because you arrive at the game on your own. You might have spoken to colleagues maybe a day or 2 days to say, oh, you're on my game if you're the referee, and if you're the assistant referee, the referee calls you and says, you're on my game, this is the time I want you there. There is no bonding time, there is no friendship, there is no affinity of any sort.
I remember many years ago, and this is why BAMREF was formed, like you once said, you know, you'd be in a change room and the manager would come in and he knows you're the referee and you'll speak to your colleague because the colleague is a white guy.
Yes.
There must be a loneliness in a situation like that.
Often, and you know, and this is where sadly the prisons like a black man's graveyard come into it, and you know, the nuances of referees of colour saying, I don't want to be a referee because 1, I don't get promoted, but 2, when I'm in the room, I don't get seen. No one sees me there, even if you are the man in the middle. And far too often, I think that happens, not necessarily out of being malicious to the match officials, just because it's the culture. We don't see black referees. As a result, if we see a black man, he's either there to drive, because in Joe's experience, they think he's the boss chairman. They think he's the bus driver because he's a big black guy. He must be the bus driver. He's going that way. And in my experience, I must be an assistant because I certainly can't be the man in the middle. Less more of that is happening because of all the work we're all doing collectively, and people are. And this is what we want. It should just be standard that when you're black, it shouldn't be a surprise that you are the leader or you're the captain or you're the referee. You're there because you deserve to be there. Those are the nuances that football never had for a very, very long time.
You're nodding.
Yeah, I'm nodding just based on, you know, this is not just refereeing, but just experiences from black and brown individuals across a number of different industries in this country. Even through my own lived experiences, going through, you know, obviously just to give you a bit of context, I was born in Ilford, just outside.
You're doing my job for me. I just
sit outside London, but I moved to London when I was 3 years old, and that's why I'm blessed with this, you know, Macam accent. But you're growing up.
I've been an Arsenal fan.
Yes, yeah. But growing up in Sunderland, not in a diverse place compared to London, and being a brown kid, a northern brown kid, technically, had its challenges. And obviously what Aji mentioned there is like, that's some of the experience that I think about when trying to, you know, speak to my teachers, for example. Like, did I get the fair attention that I needed within the school environment? Then even when you step outside the school and you've got them external challenges in terms of you know, authority, local, like, you know, policing, for example, and even when playing football, grassroots football, like the amount of stories I have playing in a northern grassroots league and being the only person that's of any diversity, you're gonna attract a bit of attention. So yeah, it kind of resonates with me a bit, but just maybe not from a refereeing perspective, but just in life in general.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because all three of us were old enough to have been operating at a time where there was not the attention to the sensitivities that there is now, and society was nowhere near as reconstructed as it is now. And I would imagine at some level all of us have managed to put those negative stories behind us, because eventually there comes a point, doesn't there, where you've got to make progress, you've got to change things, you've got to inspire rather than being stuck in that period of time. I would imagine that's the same for you both.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the only way that I thought of growing up in terms of some of the adversity that I faced was not actually, right, I can sit and wallow about it, but actually, what can I do to change people's experiences? And essentially, that was the main reason why I wanted to work in football. That was one of the main reasons why I thought that through my lived experience, I can essentially shape processes and strategies and governance to ensure...
What does that mean in layman's? Give me that in layman's. So the average person from a South Asian background, what does that mean you can do for them?
So from my perspective, being of South Asian heritage, being in a position of power, I always feel like I've got a duty not only to do my job in a sense, but also drag my communities up and support them in every step of the way. If they want to participate in football in any way, shape or form, whether it's just playing, whether it's officiating, whether it's like a full-time role, I've got to give back in a sense. There's shaping them strategies in terms of actually, if we ever look at a strategy, whether it's EDI or not EDI, ensuring that it has a lens of people that are considered as underrepresented communities. Actually, does the strategy fit obviously the populations that we're trying to reach across the country, and in a sense, then strategies that are created, are they fit for purpose in a sense?
Do you feel pressure?
I feel pressure on my job every day.
Because there'll be a lot of South Asian people who will say, you are the guy who has to make it happen. I get people stop me in Tesco's. Why didn't you sort this or that out? And I'm trying to get my dinner. but you do. I'm joking, but there is an element of pressure, isn't there, that people see you as the person, the man who can, if you like.
And the thing is, it has to work. Whatever I do, it has to work. But also, it is going to bring a level of criticism. It'll bring a level of positivity. But essentially, if I know that I'm doing the right things, I think that's probably the most important thing. And obviously, the results show, which the results are showing that we are diversifying, referees from these communities across the game. That's kind of given me proven indication. But it's pressure because I think I've said it Angie before. I don't see this as a job. This is a duty. Yeah. This is a duty of mine. And essentially, again, Darren, you've just kind of mentioned it there. Like in journalism, I don't know what the representation stats look like, but it's
beautiful.
But by default, you've got a duty on your hands. Yes. And again, Angie, when setting up BAMREF, he had a duty on his hands because he was a person of colour officiating, but there was a lack of representation. So when you are a minority in these sectors, organically and by default, there is that pressure, there is that duty.
Absolutely, and I come in there in terms of my perspective on that, Darren, and I think this is industry-wide. I think there are two sides to that coin. The first simple one, which Raj has no control over, is the fact that he's now visible. So he's a role model now. He can be seen as being one of those in the room, hence the expectation you mentioned around him being asked to do more because he's in that room. But by default, it becomes a role model that others look at, well, if he can get there, I've got the opportunity. When we put these sort of screens up with his colleagues, they're all role models because they're there in the professional game representing their communities, whether they like it or not.
Right, nearly time to go to BAMREF, so let me just ask you this. What excites you most about refereeing right now? And the work that you guys are doing in your respective fields?
I think the big thing for me is that we're changing something in refereeing. There feels like there's a lot of momentum getting behind of wider EDI projects, specifically in terms of the targeted work that we're doing, specifically for Black, Asian, mixed heritage populations. The numbers are going up, which is really, really exciting. The targeted courses that we put in place, that's now become a usual fixture now. It's not like a new thing. That's something that the county FAs are, organically thinking about doing as part of their operational plans every season. The mentoring is going from strength to strength, and we also started doing talent ID as well. So what we're trying to do is identifying that talent very early from these communities. So every summer, which will be the next one will be April to June.
What are you pointing at me for?
You're coming on the course.
Yeah, you're coming on the course, that's why.
That's all we've got time for.
April and June we'll be doing our second round of talent ID for these referees that have gone through the courses, that have been mentored. And if they are gifted and talented, we want to take them early and put them into a refereeing academy straight away. So there is a lot of exciting things that are happening, and you can see it across all levels of the game. And obviously within the professional game, you're seeing a lot more representation now. I think when I first started in my role, it was the first. I was on a BAMREF conference, and you questioned me on stage about obviously the challenges, and we don't have any representation. I think we've moved from strength to strength, but I think we've created a very good foundation. This is what the exciting thing is. We've created a good foundation, but actually it's the next stage.
The culture feels different, doesn't it? I mean, certainly I've been around long enough to know what the culture was like and what the culture is like now. And because of your work and other people within the FA, I've got to say, sometimes it was a kind of thing, it's very easy to criticise the FA from my point of view, journalistically. But there have been strategic changes and a will within the FA to actually recognise the issues that had existed.
I think I'll even go further. I think refereeing is quite unique, even though we were the invisible part of football. I think the work that is happening in refereeing, the collaboration that we collectively, whether it's community, FM, PGMO, and all those parties coming together and actually really accepting, and I use the word accepting, there is an issue here and we need to work together to resolve it. I think it's quite unique because many industries still have what I call the ostrich syndrome.
Head in the sand.
Head in the sand. They don't necessarily acknowledge there is an issue, but they placate on the waterfront just to make it like they're doing something. As soon as they get a chance, they walk away. And in all fairness to the FA, there's been opportunities for them to play that game, and they haven't done that in recent time. But the fact that you've had Raj and Darren at the PGMO come and sat on this chair and talk about the collaboration piece tells you that there is much to be positive about in the future, but we're not there yet. No. We're still around 7% representation in the pro game, Darren. And we know what the percentage is in terms of playing the game, and the vision has always been for BAMREF, reflect those playing the game, and that's where we need to get to.
You were great when I interviewed you, by the way.
Well, thank you.
He hasn't recovered yet.
All right, let's do BAMREF Watch. Right, now we were proud enough, as it was when it was confirmed last week, that Farai Lam would take charge. He was confirmed as the referee for the game between Manchester City and Wolves. Then came that decision that had all of our WhatsApp groups popping off on Saturday evening. Farai stuck to his guns in a decision where lots of people expected him, not his first ever game at Premier League level. And he stuck to his guns over a handball that he felt, having played the game, was a natural decision. Now, I won't ask you guys to re-referee or talk about what the decision was. What I'm interested in finding out is what you think of the belief that he had in himself to stick by his opinion, because he has had a lot of praise. I want you to take a look at this. So there's Alan Shearer on the BBC's Match of the Day praising Farai for sticking to his guns. Henry Winter, colleague of mine in journalism, very, very complimentary as well. A number of journalists very complimentary of Farai. What do you guys make of him sticking to his guns, and what does that say about the empowerment, the responsibility and the confidence that you give to the BAMREF alumni, if you like, to go into that arena with a huge amount of self-belief?
Well, firstly, it's worthy of just acknowledging what's really happened. I think we've always talked about having talent from black and brown communities. Farai clearly is one of talent, and his meteoric rise to the very top hasn't happened by accident because he had talent, but also he's been given the opportunity to express it, which is what we've always been lobbying for as a BAMREF community. So none of his actions surprises me about self-belief in what he does and what he also believes in. The other side is, you know, I've heard for quite a number of years now, football calling for ex-footballers to be referee. Football are asking for VAR not to referee a game and for referees to have the courage to stick by the decision no matter what. Well, Farai Alam is an ex-footballer. He played for Stevenage and he plays as a defender of football. And he's now refereeing, which is exactly what football has been asking for. Notwithstanding the diverse part of the talent bit I've just talked about. And he's gone there and he's not only not given it first time around, he's had a look at it and he's said, as a defender, what do you want him to do? You know, he's in movement, which your hands are in Dow's natural position. He hasn't had any time to react, or defender hasn't had any time to react to that, and the ball's played at speed within close proximity. And as I've always maintained, if that's an EFL, you don't give it. Any lower in the game, you don't give it. But because at Premier League, you use VAR and you slow it down and you look at every single micro movement, it's understandable why people would ask you to review that. So I think he's going by his own understanding of the game, which is what everyone's been asking for, and he's saying that's my decision. Right or wrong, whatever the whole game thinks about it, and it's one of those greys that people have different opinion on. I think as a referee, all you've got is your own self-belief, because you're often going to be on your own with your team, looking at decisions all day long, and for 95% of the workforce, you don't have the benefit of VAR. So you've got to trust your match officials to make the right call based on their knowledge, their interpretation, and their experience, all of which Farai has got a combination of playing and match officiating put together.
Was it good to see the groundswell of support for a referee, particularly a rookie referee and a referee of colour?
I think so. You know, I'm speaking as a football fan. I think I just kind of mentioned it. We don't want to see matches re-refereed by VAR, and what Farai did was he made a decision based on him. He was managing that game, and I think speaking to, like, you know, friends and family, speaking to other football fans, you know, the praise that he got was incredible, and I think also.
Did it surprise you?
Not really, no, because I think he had a very good game, and you know, we like the decisions that he made. The decisions that he made as a football fan, you could clearly understand that all the decisions were spot on. I think Shearer obviously mentioned it, that they were very strong decisions. So in a sense, like, it didn't surprise me at all. I think one thing that was really pleasing, obviously, it's another official of colour in the Premier League referee, and I think for me, like, you know, doing the work in terms of grassroots level, working with BAMREF, and then obviously you've got Aaron Williams doing stuff in the professional game. When you see representation, for me, it's iconic, really. The role models are being created, and essentially, Farai refereeing that game in the Premier League, I know that when we deliver our next course, essentially everyone will want to say, well, I want to be the next Farai Hallam, in a sense. And I think that's what I always think. I always think about the bigger picture to this, but it helped that he had a fantastic game.
Will you get a pay rise as a result?
That's not to me, so yeah.
You were sat here not so long ago. We were celebrating the achievements of Uriah Rennie. You know, I was sort of first black referee to referee in the Premier League, and then having to wait 15 years or so for Sam Allison. You know, massive gap. Some of my kids had never seen a black referee on the screen refereeing a game of football in the Premier League in their lifetime. That was the gap for Sam referee that game back in 2023. You know, but now you've seen black officials on the Premier League. You've seen Farai, you've seen Ruben Ricardo, albeit as fourth official. You've seen Akil Howson running the line week in, week out on the Premier League. You know, we need to normalise this because our community is a diverse community.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, listen, I've known you now for 8 years, 9 years. I remember when
left
I actually had an afro when I met. remember when you started BAMREF, and you started it because you were determined, like yourself, to do something about the fact that there were so few black, Asian, mixed heritage referees. And it hasn't all been pleasant. There have been lots of obstacles, there have been lots of low moments. For you in particular, this must be a source of real pride.
It would be remiss of me not to say it did make you feel so much pride seeing that happen, but also when I see the pipeline, which others can't see yet, and the good work that is going, I'm very, very encouraged that it won't be the same as it was. But that takes time. So yes, it absolutely is, but there's so much work to be done, Darren, still. Because I know fully well, and I hope I don't speak out of turn from Raj sitting there, I know fully well that we've had some incredible allies currently working behind the scenes supporting our vision for match officiating. But it's not universal. And there are still obstacles behind the scenes, still pulling against what should be normalised in society. So I know that we can't take our eyes off the ball, and we've got to keep doing this great work. And referees like Farai and Rubin and the Sam Allison and this, so when they perform well, they reinforce that vision to say actually they are capable of officiating at that level. And it's not a case of tokenism or some kind of a project to make referees more diverse, because they've got the ability to do so. So the reward of it is we've got more role models, but I think it'll even be more rewarding for me when you see them all over the game, because you see the Premier League, but then you get into the Football League and there's one, and then you have to go a little bit further to see the next talent, but then you've got incredible talent coming through at the very bottom, and we need to give them the same level of confidence and support that has seen Farai go from grassroots football to Premier League in a 7-year window.
Now, as I said earlier, there are some changes planned by the International Football Association Board. They held their annual business meeting last week for the World Cup this coming summer in the US. Now, what we decided is that we're going to go through them and we're going to rank them out of 10, just for a bit of fun. No commentary on, and nothing that we say here or do is representative of any other board's opinion, just us in the studio having a bit of fun. You're up for that?
Yeah, as a fan, yeah.
As a fan, right, okay. You're up for that, I know you're up for that. So look, the IFAB plan is to introduce a countdown, for example, for goal kicks and throw-ins, similar to the countdown that currently exists when goalkeepers have the ball in their hands. It's just like the current rule. If a player fails to put the ball back into play before the countdown ends, possession will switch to the opponent. Goal kicks will then become corners. A throw-in for one team will become a throw-in for the other. What we don't know is exactly how long the countdown is going to last, but overall, on a serious note, what do we think? We are working, aren't we, to speed the game up, to make it much better to watch, and I would imagine to compete in as well.
Yeah, I think as a football fan, you want to see more ball time in a sense. So it's we obviously have something in the Premier League in terms of obviously the 7-second rule in a sense. That seems to be working, to be fair. And it's been met quite positively. And naturally, it's taken that wastage out of the game. So I don't really have any issues with it, to be fair.
Well, it's a mixed one for me. I think if I was to rank it out of 10, I'd give it a 5.
5, okay.
As a referee. As a fan, yes, 7, 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I was going to say 8.
As a referee, I think people sometimes miss the incredible amount of work that goes on in your brain when you're refereeing a game of football. And the additions that have come into the game recently, both from managing injuries and keeping players off the field of play, as well as now the new 8-second law 12 that has come in place from fly kicks, and you've got to kick the ball out, just means an additional processing power in your brain while you're managing everything else. You've got to think, oh God, he's got the ball, I've got to start counting now. You see referees now putting their hands up and counting out from fly kicks, and now you're asking them to do it from corner kicks, you're asking them to do it from throw-in.
Substitutes now, according to the rules, let's get it up here. they are going to change the protocol around substitutes. So substituted players will have to leave the pitch in 10 seconds. Otherwise, their replacement will not be able to come on immediately. And the team making the sub will have to temporarily play with 10 players. What do we think?
Again, as a fan, it speeds the game up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it allows players, well, instead of coming off and going across the other side of the pitch and walking off slowly, which, you know, as a football fan, I've got agitated when, you know, when Arsenal's trying to chase a game and need to win, or you know what I mean? Like you want to see that player exit at the closest exit point. So yeah, it makes sense, mate.
Welcome it.
Yeah.
Welcome it.
I'm a Jetta.
Oh, absolutely welcome. I just think being mindful of injuries, extenuating circumstances.
What do you mean by that?
If there is an genuinely injured player, he's pulled his hamstring, he's in the middle of the pitch, genuinely has pulled his hamstring, you don't know as a referee because you're not a doctor, and he's got a 10 seconds clock down and he can't play, but he can't get off. And you say 10 seconds, he can't come on, he can't get off, we're starting the game. That becomes a challenge for me as a match referee.
Yes.
So,
or would there not be extenuating circumstances where they could say to the ref, actually, he is injured, we think it's a hamstring injury?
If you can trust the clubs, and I'm not saying all clubs are rogue, Darren, we've seen with the goalkeeper incident, but what clubs then would do is manager say, tell him you're injured while he's getting ready, and he's going to take him 2 minutes to get ready, so he's going to take him 2 minutes to come off. You know, if clubs play with a straight bat, forgive the pun, the referees will referee with a straight ball.
It's interesting. Funny you should say that, because the next one is injured players. The third change is that players who leave the field with an injury are going to have to stay off for an extended period. Again, it's not yet clear how long, with Premier League currently needing a 30-second absence. And the MLS, it's 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So that could be a fascinating one, because we have seen players, shall we say,
goalkeepers in the main.
Goalkeepers going down. We have discussed this on the show before. The frustrations for referees when goalkeepers go down. You don't know if they're injured. You're not doctors, so you can't ascertain that for yourself. So you have to trust that they've gone down legitimately. Difficult.
It's difficult. You don't want to, again, as a fan, you don't want your players to come off for too long of a period, because then it could be jeopardy in a sense.
Absolutely.
But also we want to try and rule out the injuries that are perceived as not as injuries, in terms of more like time wasting in a sense as well. It's hard to get that balance, really. But yeah, I can't really say what.
I think the 30-second period is worked tremendously, certainly for me, whether it's in Football League or National League games, because players do think about it. You walk up to them and you ask the question, do you want a doctor in 30 seconds on the sideline? And they would say, majority say, no, I don't. It's all right, get up, we're playing. And I think that works well where there is a gap in that process as goalkeepers. And I think rather than elongating the process, I think find a way of including the goalkeepers in that process, and I think the game will benefit better.
Right, now VAR. Firstly, this is two parts to this one. All corners are going to be reviewed by VAR at the World Cup. I believe that the checks will almost always be complete before the kick is taken, which is a welcome move. And secondly, as the VAR will be able to overturn a second yellow card if one is clearly incorrectly awarded, but it can't recommend giving a second yellow if the referee doesn't award one on field. What do we think?
If it's going to be a benefit to match officials, if they feel like that's what they need, then 100% for it. So I'll kind of pass the baton on to.
I'll take them one at a time. The corner piece is very confusing for me. I understand the rationale behind wanting to do that, because corner kicks, in theory, can lead to goal scoring scenarios.
Yes.
If you awarded the wrong corner and a goal scored, everyone's got a problem. World Cup scenarios, big decisions. You lose a game by a dodgy corner, FIFA has got a problem. So I can understand why that. But on the other hand, you're introducing rules and regulations to speed the games up. We know VAR slows the game down. So that's a confusing one. On the one hand, you're preaching speed the game up. On the other hand, you're introducing rules to slow the game down, to protect yourself. So that's a debate for another time. in regards to the second cautions, absolutely 100%. Because second cautions lead to a red card, which are game-changing scenario. And why every single red card is reviewed at the moment, because it's a straight red. But when you have a second yellow that leads to a red card, it's not reviewed. I find it a little bit of a nuisance, really. So I completely get that, because playing against 10 men is another game-changing scenario. That's my view.
Of those ones that I've just mentioned, which of those do you think might catch on?
And a second yellow. I think that's an obvious one.
Yeah.
Mistaken identity, game-changing, wrong caution, clear and obvious error, but because it's a yellow, referee is not asked to go and look at it again, and the player is sent off. It'll be interesting though, just as a sidewalk there, and it'll be interesting to see how many of the second yellows are either delaying restarts or dissent.
Yes.
Because those are very subjective. So, if I'm saying I think it's delayed a restart, and VAR thinks, well, no, I think that's dissent, and VAR, we had that instant Manchester United player the other day, which we debated extensively. Yeah, and I thought it was dissent, you thought it wasn't, and you're in VAR. You're telling me it wasn't, I'm telling you it is. We're having a fight over VAR, comes for a second yellow.
Interesting you may say that, because it's a nice segue onto our final subject on BAMREF this week. It's a second incident where the referee appears to want to disagree with VAR. It's at Crystal Palace. Darren England was the referee. If I'm not mistaken, Matt O'Donoghue was the VAR at Palace, and he believed that there should have been a red card awarded. João Pedro's goal-bound effort had struck Palace's JD Canbo on the arm. Now, to me, it looked like Canbo was being penalised for having arms. I think as far as he was concerned, there was nowhere else he could go. And Darren England, to be fair to him, appeared to want to continue with play and not award the kick. But his VAR suggested that he had to give it. That's our understanding. I'm sure that might be your understanding too as well. Where do we stand with this? And I'll go, so that I don't put you on the spot, I'll go with...
I think this is really a point of law, Darren, because the converse to you can't score a goal when it comes off your hand, no matter whether it's accidental or whatever it is. If the ball hits your hand and you put it on the back of the net, it's disallowed, because it's seen as handball, even if it's just a flick onto it. The converse today is if the ball hits the hand on the way to goal, it's penalised.
Well, you say it's a point of law. My understanding is Law 12 talks about your arms being in an unnatural position.
Unless it's a goal-bound shot.
See, I've learned all of the
which is
laws.
what the little technical... just technical nuance in this instance. I mean, that being not goal-bound, that being maybe where the Ferrari incident was an example, Darren would have a different opportunity not to give it, but because it was a goal-bound shot, unfortunately, the law takes it out of his hands. It not becomes a subjective, just a point of law. It's his hand on the way to go, he's got it.
I'm of the opinion, I'm not going to ask Christian, I'll just say, I'm quite of the opinion that it's actually healthy that we might have the VAR who says, I think you need to look at this, and a referee who says, thank you, but no thank you. We're agreed on that, no?
Yeah, well, that's absolutely healthy, because the law does give him that interpretation of law, because it's not a deliberate action tampering. Again, pre-season, we were showed a number of clips that denotes yellow card, red card scenario, and those sort of nuances where a defender has made a deliberate hand to handball the ball on the way to goal, it's a red card because it's a dog shot denying the goal scoring opportunity scenario. However, if the ball just hits his hand on the way to goal, it's a penalty and a yellow card. And that's really what the interpretation of law mandates pre-season to all of us as referees. So that wasn't one for Darren to say, do you know what, I don't think you can get out of the way, I don't think you can do this. In my opinion, it was just a point of law. The VAR was quite right to say, I hear what you're saying, I know what, but just remember this is what the law book says. Do you want to have another look at it? Make sure you've got it right, because I won't do my job right if I did one right.
When you guys see stuff like that on TV, does it make you think goodness, I'm not in that situation?
To be fair, like I always think like, well, it's always a privilege to officiate at the top level of the game, and obviously be in the VR room supporting the match officials on the pitch. So for me, like, if there wasn't ever an opportunity for any person that's going through the pathway, I think people will relish that. But you know, as a football fan, when you watch it, I think football is such a unique sport where there are so many topical conversations. As we walked into the room, we started talking about football straight away, didn't we? And I think that's just the beauty of this game, where it's like, compared to other sports, where it's like the level of subjectivity is not there. It's like clear cut.
No.
To be fair, it's not the same. You can't have them debates like you would normally have with your friends and your WhatsApp groups, or if you go to the pub, for example, if you go anywhere just as a family gathering, you can have them conversations. So in essence, I think in a good way, it's a good conversation starter.
I would absolutely welcome it, because you know, as a referee, it's no different to that 10-year-old who wants to put the ball at the back of the net.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I want to be making those decisions, hopefully correctly. But even if you don't make the right call, if in your opinion you're giving it your best, you can look at it back and think, you know what? I tried my best. Absolutely. I still want to be there.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I want to be making the score, because that's what you train for. That's what you go through all this for. But you know what I mean? That's why you do it.
Well, one thing I can say is that we will not need VAR to determine that Raj has been an excellent guest this week.
Thank you.
So don't bother writing in, because I've already decided. No, thank you very much indeed for coming on to the BAMREF Show this week. Thanks as always to Ajibola, and thank you for watching. Remember, the BAMREF Show is here every week, and we do encourage your contributions as well, particularly if you have played the game at grassroots level, or if you officiate at grassroots level. Send us your videos, your questions, your observations, and we will discuss them here on the show. In the meantime, we will see you in 2 weeks' time. See you then.